Audi Q7 of the first generation, 2005-2015 years of release. Good day. If you are wondering is it worth buying the first generation Audi Q7 and what problems you may encounter during operation, then you're at the right place. So in general, the body of the Audi Q7 is well protected from corrosion. Rust spots can appear only in places of very strong chips. Interestingly, after the restyling, the case with corrosion resistance became worse. On some examples, corrosion formed at the bottom of the doors for no apparent reason. When buying, it's worth considering. Instances with rusty or repainted doors were not necessarily rebuilt after an accident. The keyless entry system is undoubtedly very convenient, but after 3-4 years of operation it began to deliver the first problems. Furthermore, often the owners had to change the pens entirely, which was quite expensive. Of course, in extreme cases, you can also use pens with a faulty access system, but then you should be prepared for the battery to start discharging very quickly. Quite often on the Audi Q7, the drive for the fuel filler flap, the boot lid lock and parking sensors fail. Without exception, all owners of a German crossover will have to face acidification of the wiper trapezoid. Because of this, the teeth on the gears are cut off, after which one cannot do without repairing the trapezoid or completely replacing it. This is where the troubles only begin. The tubes supplying the windscreen washer fluid to the nozzles break off with enviable regularity. Often the break occurs directly in the area of the location of the engine control unit. So at first glance, not the most serious malfunction with an unfortunate coincidence of circumstances can turn into very serious expenses. The windscreen washer fluid supply pipes to the rear window were not very reliable either. When they break off, the liquid begins to spill onto the wiper motor, because of which the latter closes. The optics of the Audi Q7 are just as hassle-free. On crossovers released before the 2009 update, tail lights failed due to poor contacts. After replacing the wiring harness, the efficiency of the lights returns. On crossovers released after restyling, LEDs in the headlights often fail. It's worth remembering that the optics of the Audi Q7 are often stolen, especially now that the demand for more affordable second-hand items is growing. Moreover, thieves with careful dismantling often damage the bumper, fenders and hood. For neat Audi Q7 owners, the interior can still look decent, although certain details still give out a considerable age of the model. For a run of 100,000 kilometers, the interior of the German crossover is filled with a few crickets and squeaks. The heating motor fails earlier. On average, this happens with a mileage of 60-70,000 kilometers. It's possible to prepare for repairs immediately after the appearance of a characteristic whistle. To the mark of 100-120,000 kilometers, the actuators of the air conditioning damper begin to wedge. At the same time, it will be necessary to resolve the issue of insufficient tightness of the air conditioning system. This is due to the cracking tubes located frankly unsuccessfully in the area of the front left wheel. Another common problem is the fading of the display of the multimedia system. It also manifests itself to the mark of 100-120,000 kilometers. At first, the display's performance is restored after the system is restarted, but in the future it's worth preparing to replace the MMI unit. There are enough problems not only with electronics but also with power units. And no wonder, all Audi Q7 engines are technically quite complex. One of the most reliable engines available for the German crossover is the 3.6 FSI gasoline unit. Its gas distribution mechanism uses a chain that stretches noticeably for a run of 150,000 kilometers. You can't count on a cheap replacement. Often owners are faced with a failed engine control unit. The Audi Q7 is not insured against starter combustion either, but this problem is more typical for diesel versions of the crossover. However, I will kill to change the starter to a new one is not worth it. Sometimes problems arise due to the loss of mass. In this case, it's enough to replace the wire going to the body with a similar new one. The 3-liter diesel engine is also relatively good, but with an important caveat. Its modifications released before 2008 often caused problems with the injection pump to the owners. Having normally worked 80-100,000 kilometers, the pump suddenly began to throw out the smallest shavings into the fuel system. The consequences are dire, and their elimination can easily devastate the family budget by 300-400 rubles. Until 2009, the same engine often caused problems with the intake manifold flaps. The huge trouble with the 4.2 FSI gasoline engine is the seizure in the piston group. Often they appeared already with a mileage of 50-60,000 kilometers. It's scary to even imagine the condition of 4.2-liter engines on cars with a range of under 200,000 kilometers. The petrol 3-liter engine of the FSI series on crossovers produced before 2010, already with a mileage of 30-40,000 kilometers, began to consume 1.5 liters of oil for every 1,000 kilometers. Dealers changed the crankshaft oil seal, oil separator and reflashed the computer, but they could not completely cope with the oil appetite. In some cases, the piston group had to be completely changed. The version with a 3.6-liter engine relied on a 6-speed automatic ZF. This box has been fitted to many other models and has proven itself very well. In the interval from 170 to 220,000 kilometers, repair or replacement may only require a transfer case in the all-wheel drive system. For the rest, taking care of the machine will be reduced to a scheduled oil change every 60,000 kilometers. The rest of the engines on the crossovers released before the restyling relied on an automatic transmission from Aisin. There are much more problems with this machine. The box was noted both by the leakage of sealing rubber bands and not the highest resource of the valve body. After the 2010 update, the Aisin box was abandoned in favor of an 8-speed automatic transmission made by ZF. The suspension of the Audi Q7 will require serious financial investments in the range from 100 to 150,000 kilometers. The suspension arms, ball joints, steering tips and tie rods will have to be replaced. Of course, bushings and stabilizer struts will also be replaced. In addition to the standard spring suspension, an adaptive suspension with adjustable shock absorber stiffness was available for the Audi Q7. In general, the adaptive suspension proved to be quite good, but it was not without problems in this case. At low temperatures, valves and compressor fail quite quickly. The reason for this is moisture accumulating inside, which turns into ice with the onset of severe frosts. For compressor repairs, you will have to pay about 20,000 rubles. After 50-60,000 kilometers, the unpleasant situation will repeat itself again. A new compressor will cost 120-140,000 rubles. Pneumatic racks themselves are not cheap, depending on the manufacturer, from 80 to 120,000 rubles per piece. The only thing that saved the owners of the Audi Q7 with air suspension from ruin is that the struts serve about 200,000 kilometers. An interval of 120-150,000 kilometers becomes critical for the steering rack. Repair will help to get rid of knocks, which will cost at least 20-25,000 rubles. If the rail has to be changed completely, be prepared to part with the amount of 60-70,000 rubles. Buyers of brand new Audi Q7 and copies of 10-15 years old with a mileage of 150-100,000 kilometers are two completely different categories of buyers. Their approach to operating a car is often also fundamentally different. The first, being in no way limited financially, had the opportunity to attend scheduled maintenance and not save on spare parts and repairs. Therefore, for the most part, crossovers with a mileage of up to 100,000 kilometers, even despite a huge number of design mistakes, are rather pleasing to the owners. If you are the owner, then be sure to leave a comment about this car. Your review will definitely help others with the choice of a car.